AOC. What? She's kind of fun in a silly but earnest, wrong but adorable way. She's like your daughter when she comes back from her first year at Brown, full of half-baked, half opinions, in need of some gentle, patient deprogramming. But people have to realize new faces doesn't mean new ideas. Drives me crazy. AOC has never introduced a fresh idea or issue in her life.
Greg Gutfeld just walked onto the scene with a flamethrower and pointed it straight at AOC. Yes, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, queen of dramatic sound bites and viral moments. Except this time she isn't holding the mic, she's holding the L. And everyone's jaw is on the floor. What Greg dug up isn't just another political hit piece. It reads like a mashup of stand-up comedy and chaos with a few career-ending truth bombs rolled into one. The kind of stuff that makes people laugh, gasp, and immediately start refreshing their timelines to see what happens next.
There is nothing consistent with the Republican Party's continued attack except for the racism and incitement of violence against women of color in this. The Republican caucus threatened my life, and you all and the Republican caucus rewarded him with one of the most prestigious committee assignments in this Congress. Don't tell me this is about consistency. Don't tell me that this is about a condemnation of...
If you're liking this, make sure to subscribe. It actually helps way more than you realize. Greg Gutfeld calling out Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doesn't even feel like politics at this point. It plays more like a comedy special disguised as news. Because let's be honest, AOC has styled herself as Congress's Marvel superhero, no cape required, but an Instagram filter, always.
Gets along with Bernie is because she's like an 80-year-old leftist in a used bookstore. I mean, she may look fresh, but she's as stale as an abandoned futon on the street. It's like, I listen to her, I go, I heard that at Berkeley in 1983. So their problem is, and the reason why they don't have any ideas is they operate on half opinions. Like, what if we get rid of cash bail? Oh, let's do it. What happens? You have repeat criminals wreaking havoc. What if we have sanctuary cities? Hey, let's do it. What happens? You have rapists and killers, finding sanctuary, safe haven. What if we give...
She's out here promising to save the planet, end poverty, cure inequality, and maybe even teach your cat yoga all before brunch. And then along comes Gutfeld, looking at her speeches like, this isn't politics, this is open mic night, and I just brought the mic drop.
I love how she explains it. They're not meant for you, right? But then you have to ask, okay, then what is this debt forgiveness? Who is it meant for? And when you look at the data, it's upper, white, middle-class, liberal women. This ain't welfare, right? These are well-to-do people. It's a bribe for Democrats on the backs of plumbers, truckers, and everyone else who actually does a real job, unlike me. AOC is the symbol of the entitled sponge. She complains about student loans, but she owns a Tesla.
The funniest part is how predictable it's become. AOC storms in like the voice of the oppressed working class, painting big dreams about rooftop gardens and free everything, while Greg Gutfeld slides in like that sarcastic uncle at Thanksgiving who refuses to let any grand plan go by without a jab.
Think about what their ideas incentivize. That would be nice. So where are their ideas going to come from? Trump. The only way they're going to create a message is based on whatever Trump does. So I have some slogans for the Democrat Party.
Oh, wow.
The Democrat Party, when you're tired of success.
Okay.
The Democrat Party, make America suck again. Democrat Party, the first choice for illegals, vandals, and dead people.
Greg doesn't come at her with charts, graphs, or dry policy papers. Instead, he takes her whole presentation, spins it like pizza dough, and slides it straight into the comedy oven. Suddenly, her billion-dollar proposals sound less like serious policy and more like a teenager maxing out a credit card at Sephora. But here's the thing, it's not just comedy, it's exposure. Because when Greg breaks it down, he's not only laughing at AOC's grandstanding, he's peeling back the curtain on the contradictions that make her both the internet's favorite activist and Congress's most ambitious scriptwriter, like how she rails against capitalism while live streaming in $200 hoodies, sipping organic kombucha that costs more than a week's worth of groceries for some families. And this is where it really lands. Greg doesn't just roast her ideas, he calls out that her biggest wins seem to live mostly on social media. To him, AOC's TikToks look less like legislative updates and more like performance art. Yeah, she's in Congress, but her real stage is Instagram Live, complete with ring lights, rehearsed outrage, and a comment section hyping her up like she's headlining Coachella. And when Greg points that out, it stings because deep down, it feels like he's voicing what everyone suspects but won't say out loud. Maybe she's more influencer than lawmaker.
She owns a French bulldog. Thanks to Cat Temp, I know everything about French bulldogs. And one thing I know,
I got a French.
They are so expensive They're more expensive than any college tuition. You got to take care of them. They're adorable dogs. But she owns a Tesla and she owns a French Bulldog, and she wants you or your dad, the electrician, to forgive her student loan. That's BS. Turn in the Tesla. Sell the dog. I'll buy it half.
And the receipts, oh, Greg's got plenty. He loves pointing out how AOC's crown jewel, the Green New Deal, isn't really a plan at all, but more of a wish list that reads like a teenager's vision board. Free healthcare, free education, guaranteed jobs, maybe even free puppies if you stick around. The real problem, of course, is who's footing the bill. AOC waves it off toward billionaires and corporations like they're an all-you-can-eat buffet, while Gutfeld just sits there, reminding her that math is still a thing. Suddenly, the utopia starts looking less like a bold future and more like your broke cousin's desperate Venmo request, ambitious, heartfelt, but completely unrealistic. Sure, it's emotional and maybe even inspiring, but when you strip away the buzzwords, the whole thing has the sturdiness of IKEA furniture put together without the instructions, and the fallout is always hilarious. On one side, conservatives treat Gutfeld's jokes like scripture, sharing clips of him mocking her climate math as if they'd just uncovered a lost book of the Bible. On the other, progressives scramble to defend her like she's the last shield against the apocalypse, waving off Greg's roast as nothing more than cruelty.
Meantime, AOC has taken a break from doing nothing to get into a beef with the Twitter chief. On Tuesday, she tweeted, LMAO at a billionaire earnestly trying to sell people on the idea that free speech is actually an $8 a month subscription plan. That's a reference to Musk's plan to charge people $8 a month for verified blue checkmark status. But he hit back tweeting, your feedback is appreciated. Now pay $8. To be fair.
And right in the middle of it all, you've got regular people cracking up because honestly, watching Gutfeld versus AOC is funnier than half the comedies on Netflix. But underneath the laughs, there's a bite because comedy has always been one of the sharpest political weapons, and Greg wields it like a scalpel. He's not just mocking her policies, he's exposing how she packages them, how the branding, the image, the social media hype all drown out the messy reality. He shows how her slogans sparkle in a tweet but fall apart when you actually try to run a country on them. And that's what makes it sting, not because it's mean, but because it's true. His whole shtick works because he says the quiet part out loud. Is this Congress or the TikTok house? And the timing couldn't be juicier. Politics today is basically entertainment, and AOC plays the influencer while Gutfeld plays the critic, turning the whole thing into a roast. And like any good roast, the laughter isn't just about the punchlines, it's about the uncomfortable truths hiding underneath.
To be fair, she'd love to spend the $8, but she already bought a Tesla. He also tweeted a photo of some ugly AOC merch she's trying to hawk for $58. Overpriced merch, AOC. Seems pretty capitalistic of you, which according to you makes you evil. And according to anyone paying attention, also makes you full of.
When Greg mocks her economic math, he's not just going for laughs, he's exposing how flimsy and unserious some of AOC's grand proposals really are. When he pokes fun at her working-class branding, he's pulling back the curtain on the gap between her rhetoric and her reality. And when he skewers her Instagram activism, he's showing just how much of modern politics has drifted into theater instead of substance. Then comes the fallout. AOC, who never backs down from a Twitter fight, usually jumps in with a response that only throws more fuel on the fire. Whether she's doubling down on her point or pivoting into moral outrage, her clapbacks rarely shut the story down. They just give Greg even more material to roast. It's this never-ending loop. AOC says something, Greg mocks it, she responds, Greg mocks the response, and the cycle continues. It's political ping-pong, and the audience can't stop laughing. But beneath the comedy, there's a bigger picture. Greg is reminding people that politics isn't just about what sounds inspiring, it's about what actually works. And if you can't explain how to pay for your utopia, maybe it's not a utopia at all. Maybe it's just a tweet.
I mean, first of all, $80 per theater. I mean, I made $80 in a theater, and there wasn't even a movie playing.
Wow. What do you mean?
I don't know. You know, it's no surprise. Who would go see a movie that's the opposite of entertaining? There's nothing entertaining about that. Michael Moore's colonoscopy is more entertaining than that because there's probably more twists. But it does show you how great it is to be a progressive in a liberal biased culture. She really doesn't do her job, right? She makes movies, she goes to galas, she sits for glossy butt-kissing interviews in GQ and other women's mags.
And that's why Greg's takedowns hit the way they do. They're not just funny, they're clarifying. They slice right through the noise of emotional appeals and Instagram speeches and expose the cracks underneath. And people love watching it because, deep down, everyone's a little sick of being sold fairy tales without receipts. Greg just delivers that truth with a punchline. By the time the dust settles, sure, AOC's brand might still stand. She thrives on attention, good or bad, but once you've seen the illusion peeled back, you can't unsee it. And maybe that's the real exposure danger here. Not one viral moment or single critique, but the slow erosion of the act itself. Greg takes the glossy magazine cover version of AOC, tears it off, and shows you the unfiltered reality beneath. And when you realize her power comes less from policy and more from performance, the whole show suddenly feels a lot less convincing, which, honestly, is hilarious and terrifying all at once.
It's funny. That's mean. You're
right,
mean.
she's
You're
not
being mean.
But I'm fascinated they thought there was an audience for this outside of like Earth Justice or the Justice Democrats, because who really wanted to go and see this thing? And then tomorrow you'll have an article that we'll have to talk about, which is that kids all over America are having nightmares about climate change. Well, no wonder.
Well, Jessica, what about the fact that the climate activists are very much, they're very much enthused about what they do.
And if this is just round one of Greg versus AOC, imagine what's coming, because politics isn't slowing down and neither are the punchlines. Let's be real, Greg Gutfeld versus AOC isn't some one-off skit, it's an ongoing sitcom. Every time she posts, speaks, or even breathes too loud on Capitol Hill, Greg's standing there with a pen ready to spin it into the joke of the night. At this point, it doesn't even feel like politics anymore. It's improv comedy with taxpayer funding. Take her whole obsession with being the voice of the working class. She paints herself like Rosie the Riveter too, fists up, ready to slay billionaires, but the exposure hits, like one of those moments where you realize your gym membership has been draining your account for 3 years and you haven't touched a treadmill once. Equal parts funny and painful. And then there's her climate crusader persona. For AOC, climate change is basically a Marvel villain looming, dramatic, unstoppable, unless we hand her an Avengers-sized budget to fix it. In her world, the Green New Deal is the Infinity Gauntlet. Snap her fingers and suddenly carbon emissions vanish, planes run on pure good vibes, and every building in America gets remodeled like an HGTV special.
AOC was on 60 Minutes last night. Quite a feat for a newcomer. Must be all her great new ideas.
People are going to have to start paying their fair share in taxes. Once you get to like the tippy tops, on your $10 millionth dollar, sometimes you see tax rates as high as 60 or 70%.
What an expression. Now, the real story isn't AOC's very old ideas. It's the media's gushy view of her. Even with her old ideas, she gets on 60 Minutes. The past is called the future, and you better love it.
Gutfeld just looks at all this and goes, cool dream, but how exactly are we paying for it, selling merch? Suddenly, her big vision stops sounding like legislation and starts sounding like a Kickstarter pitch with stretch goals that include ending poverty and handing out free unicorns. That's the genius of Greg's approach. He doesn't argue like a policy nerd, he ridicules like a comedian. He doesn't say, this math doesn't add up. He says, this math belongs on a cocktail napkin after 2 margaritas. He doesn't, this proposal lacks detail, he says. This proposal has as much detail as a toddler's drawing of a house. That's why his takedowns go viral. They stick in your head like a joke you can't unhear. And while her fans swoon, Greg just laughs and keeps turning it into comedy fuel. It's like trying to win a water balloon fight against somebody holding a flamethrower. She's got passion, but he's got fire. And what makes it even funnier is how the media plays along. Progressive outlets scramble to defend her, calling Greg unfair or dismissive, which only adds more spotlight to the roast.
This delightful dancing video from last week. The media created a fake story that conservatives attacked her over this delightful trifle. Not really. In fact, the only stories written about the dance were by liberals using it to falsely smear the right. So the press creates a shield around her in which any criticism must be due to sexism or bigotry, when in fact it's in their heads and not ours. But this strategy works by preventing real criticism about her actual beliefs, which are retreads of horrible ideas from previous centuries. Socialism with a smile, fascism among friends, Venezuela meets vegan.
Meanwhile, conservative outlets are plastering Greg's punchlines everywhere, practically turning them into bumper stickers, while the rest of us are sitting on the sidelines with popcorn, watching what feels like the strangest buddy comedy ever made. One plays the activist turned influencer, the other plays the sarcastic late-night uncle, and together they've created a show that's honestly more entertaining than anything Netflix has dropped in years. But the bigger question is, what does it all mean for politics? On one hand, AOC feeds on attention, good or bad, and every clapback, every meme, every viral moment just cements her as a cultural icon. On the other hand, once the illusion fades, the magic's gone. That's why these moments hit harder than they look. They're not just jokes, they're political reality checks disguised as punchlines. They remind us that slogans aren't solutions, Instagram followers aren't legislation, and fiery speeches don't balance budgets. And maybe, just maybe, they remind AOC that being the star of the internet doesn't automatically make you the star of Congress.
YouGov poll says AOC has 61% approval rating for Democrats, right? The highest of any Democrat unless they've been elected president. So if your new brand ambassador is going to be AOC, then I think it's more than just the messaging and the branding.
So by now you heard that AOC, among others, were arrested last night. She truly is an American hero. It was brutal, taken out in cuffs. Well, technically, her shirt had cuffs. Maybe French cuffs, as she did surrender without fighting.
But here's the kicker, she's going to keep doing it. Because AOC, without the drama, without the flair, without the endless Instagram lives, just isn't AOC. And Gutfeld, he's going to keep roasting her. Because without her, he loses half his material. It's the strangest kind of political symbiosis. She feeds him content, he feeds her relevance, and the rest of us get to laugh our way through the chaos. So buckle up, because this saga isn't wrapping anytime soon. Every new proposal, every social media stunt, every dramatic speech is just another episode waiting for Greg to spin into comedy gold. And if you thought this round was brutal, just wait for the next, because if AOC is politics influencer in chief, then Greg Gutfeld is the professional heckler who never leaves the club. And in this comedy club we call Washington, the mic's always hot, the jokes are sharp, and the exposure never stops.